There's over 3,500 road miles in Fresno County that we have to maintain every day. Now, the opportunity that this legislation brings to us is another $46 million that could come to Fresno County, and that's significant for all the work that needs to be done. But let me say this. I think the bigger issue here is the coalition that has been built, has already been said. But what we're building ourselves around is a number of guiding principles that we as a coalition are asking the state legislature, the governor, to keep in mind as they develop this program. And I think there's so many critical components of it, and one of many, is that 50-50 split that we've sent a very strong message to Sacramento that that's the way it should be. 50% for state highways and roads that the state will administer, and the remaining 50% for cities and counties. And that's a principle that we're going to hold very strongly to. And I think the numbers that we're laying out, just like I laid out what the number is for Fresno County, is a very tangible number that every community can rely on a go-forward basis for their infrastructure. So I'll just leave it with just a simple statement on vision. I think we all know that our grandparents and great-grandparents built the infrastructure that we're living off of now. In 1960, there were about 16 million Californians. In 2014, about 38, 39 million Californians. That was projected in the next 20 years as about 48, 49 million Californians. Well, we're living off the vision and the hard decisions that were made by our predecessors. When you look at the end of World War II, when that 15-year period of time, when they built the major infrastructure that we have in this great state now, the road and the water infrastructure, well, it's stressed. It's not big enough now to meet not just our current needs, but future. So our job as elected officials, that as a community, is to come together, stand behind these guiding principles, and make sure that we move our state forward for our children and our grandchildren.
You have a very strong coalition behind us of local government leaders, state legislative leaders, labor, business. This is the same coalition that put together a funding package in 2006. There was a funding package called Proposition 1B that delivered on a lot of needs around California, $1 billion of investment in Route 99 in the Central Valley. And the only criticism of that program was that it was one-time money. And what we need to do now is invest in an ongoing and permanent way with stable transportation revenues for the future. So we can not just do this one time and not have to return to it every few years, but really put in a process of dedicated, stable funding that will allow us to build the California we all want. So I want to thank all the local representatives, the speaker, for inviting me to come down here. It's a very important issue for the governor. It's why he flagged it, and we're working hard to try to get something done.
We need to look at the infrastructure as a state and a local issue. And when we talk about funding going forward, that's going to be very, very important. In Stanislaus County, our pavement management index rating is 55, better known as an F-. If you are using school parlance, it would take about $16 million more a year than we're receiving right now for the county roads and our 1,500 miles of roadways just to maintain, not to improve it, to maintain. It'll take north of $20 million for us to do the safety projects that are absolutely necessary. So the demand in my county grows, the demand grows in every single county. On top of that, the purchasing power of the revenue streams has just about been cut in half since 1994, the last time the gas tax was actually raised. So what are we going to do? Since we're all going to agree that there's a problem and we need action to fix our roads, how are we going to do that? Well, we're part of a broad coalition, the Fix Our Roads Coalition, in which CSAC, Labor, the Chamber of Commerce, the League of Cities, and we're talking about raising revenue coupled with strong accountability factor, and that's going to be a theme going forward. We need to let people know we're accountable to them.
Yes, we agree it's going to take new funding, and it's going to need to be split between cities and between states and localities, and it really needs to be done in an equitable fashion. Merced County having about 1,800 miles of road, and a good estimate is it usually takes about $1 million a mile to, frankly, maintain that process. That's simply to maintain it, not to, frankly, do the other kinds of things we might need to do. The new funding, however, will need to be linked strongly to accountability and reforms that voters would be confident that the taxpayer dollars are going to the intended purpose, transportation. First and foremost, we must ensure that new and existing transportation revenues are constitutionally guaranteed to go to transportation projects. We also additionally need the state to must repay the existing transportation loans and end the ongoing diversion of the money supposedly going to transportation issues. We must also establish performance and accountability criteria and take steps both at the state and local level to streamline our project delivery. The savings that we would create from those kinds of accountabilities should be redirected to transportation projects. By focusing on fixing and maintaining the current system, we can be smart, frugal with the taxpayers' money. And by providing really common sense safeguards on how the money is used, we can increase the public confidence that funding at the state and local level actually goes to where it's promised to go. I think it's critical for us to do so in that way if we want to move forward. It is a desperate one, and I agree with my colleague. It is really a quality of life, so it is good to be here with my colleagues, both at the state and the local level, to talk about this critical issue in our community.
One of the most essential elements of our survival, our infrastructure, has not had a revenue increase in over 2 decades. And it's time. The time really was a decade ago, but it's time to get the appropriate revenue along with the appropriate reforms to make sure that Californians' taxpayer dollars are used correctly, effectively, with the right set of reforms throughout the transportation corridor, and then used for transportation purposes. And as Supervisor Perea said, our forefathers spent a lot of dollars in infrastructure, and this governor, to his credit, has helped get a water bond that will help build our water infrastructure going forward. And along with leadership in Sacramento, he's interested in he's called a special session, convened a special session to address the ailing infrastructure needs in transportation throughout the state. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. I hope that our leadership in Sacramento will work hand in hand, Republicans and Democrats, to come up with something meaningful for Californians. Come up with a package that addresses our challenges, addresses our transportation needs. Again, not a one-time, but basically pay as you go, and address this issue long-term for all Californians, especially those of us in Central California.